Karen Whitmore stood at her kitchen window, clutching her coffee mug like a weapon as she surveyed the Willowbrook HOA community pool through her designer binoculars. At 52, she'd appointed herself the unofficial guardian of pool regulations, armed with a laminated copy of the community guidelines and an unwavering belief that order must prevail. "Absolutely not," she muttered, watching a family of 4 splash around without proper supervision ratios. The mother was clearly distracted, scrolling through her phone while her daughter, maybe 8 years old, cannonballed repeatedly off the diving board. Karen's eye twitched. Section 4.2 clearly stated, children under 10 must maintain constant adult supervision within arm's reach. This was exactly the kind of negligence that led to accidents, lawsuits, and decreased property values. She grabbed her phone and speed-dialed Marcus, the pool maintenance coordinator. "Marcus, this is Karen Whitmore from 127 Maple Court. We have a code orange situation at the pool." "Mrs. Whitmore, I've told you before, we don't have color-coded emergencies for." "The Henderson girl is diving unsupervised while her mother texts. This is a liability nightmare waiting to happen." Marcus sighed audibly. "Mom, unless someone's drowning or there's actual property damage." Karen hung up and marched toward her front door, snatching her HOA board representative badge from the hallway table. If the official channels wouldn't respond, she'd handle this personally. The summer heat hit her like a wall as she strode across the manicured lawn, her sensible flats clicking against the pool deck. The Henderson family looked up as she approached, their laughter dying. "Excuse me," Karen announced, her voice carrying across the water. "I'm Karen Whitmore, HOA board representative. I need to address a serious safety violation." Mrs. Henderson lowered her phone, confusion flickering across her face. "I'm sorry, what violation?" "Your daughter is diving without adequate supervision. Community guidelines clearly state. She's 8 and an excellent swimmer," Mrs. Henderson interrupted. "I'm right here scrolling through social media," Karen shot back, pulling out her phone. "I'm documenting this incident for the board. What's your address?" "Are you serious right now?" Mr. Henderson stood up from his lounge chair, water dripping from his chest. "Lady, my kid is fine." Karen's jaw tightened. She'd dealt with these types before, entitled residents who thought rules didn't apply to them. The rules exist for everyone's protection. If you can't follow basic safety protocols. "Mom, can I do another dive?" the little girl called out, oblivious to the tension. "Absolutely not," Karen declared before the parents could respond. "Pool privileges are suspended until you demonstrate compliance with." "You can't suspend anything," Mrs. Henderson snapped, standing up. "You're not pool security." Karen felt heat rising in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the sun. "I am an elected representative of this community, and I have every authority to." "To what?" "Harass families trying to enjoy their Saturday." Other pool-goers had stopped swimming to watch the confrontation. Karen felt their stares like spotlights, her authority crumbling under their judgment. These people didn't understand the burden of responsibility, the constant vigilance required to maintain their quality of life. "Fine," Karen said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Continue your reckless behavior, but when something happens, and it will, remember that I tried to prevent it." She turned on her heel and stalked back toward her house, already composing the incident report in her mind. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. "The Henderson family is considering legal action," Williams added quietly, "against you personally and the HOA as an organization." Karen felt the room spinning. "I dedicated 5 years to this community. I've improved property values, maintained standards. You've created a hostile environment," Williams said firmly. "Your resignation letter is due by Friday, or we'll hold a formal removal vote." Walking home across the perfectly manicured common areas she'd fought so hard to protect, Karen felt utterly hollow. Her mailbox was already tagged with graffiti, a crude drawing of a water gun with Karen's worst nightmare scrawled beneath it. But as she climbed her front steps, Karen noticed something that made her pause. The Hendersons' lawn had brown patches where their sprinkler system was clearly malfunctioning, violating Section 2.4 of the landscaping requirements. Karen pulled out her phone, then stopped. For the first time in 5 years, she put it away and walked inside without documenting the violation. The next morning, she found an envelope slipped under her door with no return address. Inside was a single photo, the little girl from the pool, smiling and holding her pink water gun before the incident. On the back, someone had written, "She asked me to give this to the sad lady who doesn't know how to have fun anymore." Karen stared at the photo for a long time, something shifting inside her chest. Maybe it was time to learn. But first, she had one more board meeting to attend, because even as she was resigning, she wasn't going down without ensuring the community understood exactly why their standards mattered, and what happened when fear replaced common sense in the pursuit of order. The standoff lasted exactly 47 seconds, long enough for Karen to realize she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross, but short enough that no one was physically hurt. The SWAT team quickly identified the pink super soaker as a toy, but the damage was done. Traumatized children sobbed in their parents' arms, while officers took statements, and Karen found herself at the center of a very different kind of attention than she'd sought. "Ma'am, you reported an armed threat," Sergeant Rodriguez said, standing on Karen's doorstep 20 minutes later. His voice was controlled, professional, but Karen caught the edge of barely contained anger. "A child with a water gun. The community guidelines clearly prohibit realistic weapon replicas," Karen said, though her voice lacked its earlier conviction. "I was following protocol." "Protocol?" Rodriguez's eyebrows shot up. "Lady, we pulled a SWAT team away from a domestic violence call because you can't tell the difference between a super soaker and a Glock." Karen felt her carefully constructed authority crumbling. "I was protecting the community. That's my responsibility as." "Your responsibility is to use common sense," Rodriguez interrupted. "We've got 8 traumatized families, a little girl who's afraid of police officers now, and a department that's going to be asking some serious questions about resource allocation." Through her window, Karen could see neighbors gathered in small groups, their conversations stopping whenever they looked toward her house. Mrs. Henderson was speaking animatedly with Marcus, the pool coordinator, both of them gesturing in her direction. "There will be consequences for filing a false report," Rodriguez continued, handing her a citation. "Court dates on the bottom. I suggest you find a lawyer who specializes in community disputes, because this isn't over." After Rodriguez left, Karen sank onto her couch, the citation trembling in her hands. Her phone buzzed constantly. Texts from board members, neighbors, even her ex-husband, who'd somehow heard about the incident through their daughter. The worst message came from Linda. "Emergency AOA board meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Your position is up for review." Karen spent the evening crafting her defense, pulling out every regulation she could find to justify her actions. But as she worked, she kept returning to the image of that little girl's face, confusion turning to terror as armed officers surrounded her. By morning, someone had posted a video of the incident on the community Facebook page. Karen watched in horror as her confrontation with the Henderson family played out in shaky phone footage, her voice shrill and demanding as she threatened an 8-year-old with pool suspension. The comments were brutal. "This woman is completely unhinged. Karen Whitmore needs to be removed from the board immediately. My daughter still won't stop crying. This lunatic traumatized our entire family." At the emergency board meeting, Karen sat alone at one end of the conference table while 5 other board members reviewed the incident report, police statements, and community feedback. The silence stretched until board president Janet Williams finally spoke. "Karen, in light of recent events, we're asking for your resignation." "You can't do this," Karen protested. "I was enforcing community standards. Everything I did was within." "You called a SWAT team on a child," board member Tom Chen interrupted. "Our insurance company is already asking questions. The liability exposure alone." Karen spent the next hour at her computer, typing furiously. The incident report grew from 1 page to 3, as she detailed every violation she'd witnessed over the past month. Unleashed dogs on common areas, children's chalk art on sidewalks, And now this blatant disregard for pool safety. Her phone buzzed with a text from her neighbor, Linda. Saw the pool drama. Maybe dial it back a notch? Karen's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Linda didn't understand. None of them did. When Karen had moved to Willowbrook 5 years ago after her divorce, she'd thrown herself into community involvement as a lifeline. The HOA board position gave her purpose, respect, authority. Things her ex-husband had systematically stripped away during 20 years of marriage. She glanced back at the pool through her window. The Henderson family was still there, their daughter now playing Marco Polo with 2 other children who'd arrived. Mrs. Henderson was actually in the water now, supervising properly. Karen felt a flicker of satisfaction. Her intervention had worked. But then she noticed something that made her blood pressure spike. The Henderson girl was using a bright pink water gun, shooting streams at the other children. Karen squinted through her binoculars, reading the manufacturer's label on the toy. Super Soaker 3000, she breathed. Realistic firearm replica. Her mind raced through the community guidelines. Section 7.3. No weapons or realistic weapon replicas permitted on community property. This wasn't just a safety violation, it was a security threat. Karen grabbed her phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Karen Whitmore at Willowbrook Community Pool. We have an armed individual threatening other residents. Ma'am, can you describe the weapon? Karen's heart hammered. It appears to be a handgun. The subject is a juvenile, approximately 8 years old, targeting multiple victims in the pool area. Officers are en route. Please maintain a safe distance and do not engage. Karen hung up, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Finally, someone was taking her seriously. She positioned herself at the window to guide the responding officers, watching as the girl continued her water gun assault on unsuspecting swimmers. Within minutes, she heard sirens approaching. Karen stepped onto her front porch, waving to guide the police cruisers toward the pool. But instead of the standard patrol cars she expected, 3 black SWAT vehicles screeched into the parking lot. What the hell? Someone shouted from the pool area. Karen watched in fascination as heavily armed officers deployed around the pool perimeter, their movements swift and coordinated. This was exactly the kind of professional response that serious threats required. Everybody out of the pool now. A voice boomed through a megaphone. This is not a drill. Chaos erupted. Families scrambled from the water, grabbing towels and children as officers established a perimeter. Karen felt a surge of vindication watching Mrs. Henderson's face contort with panic as she realized the severity of the situation. But then the little girl emerged from the pool, still clutching her pink water gun, and Karen felt the first twinge of uncertainty. In the harsh afternoon sunlight, surrounded by tactical officers with assault rifles, the toy looked suddenly, unmistakably childish. Drop the weapon, an officer shouted, his rifle trained on the 8-year-old. The girl froze, confusion replacing joy on her small face. It's just my water gun, she said in a tiny voice that carried across the suddenly silent pool deck. Karen's stomach dropped as she realized what she'd done. But it was too late to take it back. The wheels were already in motion, and she could only watch as her quest for order spiraled completely out of control.